I suggest you lower your gun.
Welcome, friends. We're back this week talking Quantum Leap Season 2 of the revived, continuated, whatever you call it series. Somehow we're up to Episode 11. This one is entitled The Outsider. Now, there will be spoilers ahead, so take this as your last chance to get out if those aren't for you. Now let's crack on with the show. We pick up as far as the leaps go in this episode in around October of 1982. So if you're playing along at home, that's approximately, 12 years since the last time Ben and Hannah actually interacted in person. That doesn't play into the storyline in a very long-reaching way in this episode, so I guess my theory that the last few episodes of the season were going to exclusively deal with that nature of their relationship, hopping forward in time to meet her in each and every leap, doesn't seem to be the case because the last two episodes have just explicitly dropped that. In fact, last episode, all we really got as far as that storyline goes is he wrote that letter to her to be delivered upon the leap out from the last time they met. We find out from Ziggy through Addison that the letter in fact worked. However, about a year after that life-saving surgery to save her husband, he died in a car wreck anyways. It doesn't go into any details as far as what she thought of the letter or any of that stuff, so it seems like fate, time, whatever you want to say, is kind of trying to make sure this death happens, or there's some other player behind the scenes dealing with it anyways, who knows. So we have the modern day storyline that came back in last episode where Gideon is finally on the trail of Ian, who stole his quantum chip and all of that stuff, broke into the Quantum Leap headquarters at the end of last episode, and he's kind of running the show, as it were, in this episode, to the point where he was sitting in Ernie Hudson, I guess Magic's chair in this episode, kind of dictating where and how he wanted things to go. And I know that this is kind of playing up in the show. It felt a little wrong to me, and I know that they're trying to say, well, because this contractor is so important, the government really wants to be on his side because that's where all the money and blah, blah, blah is coming from. It just feels a little bit disingenuous if that's the way things would actually be run, that he would be allowed all of this power and control over a facility with a time machine in it. Regardless how well the time machine is working, the fact that there's kinks and there's problems and all of this stuff, it is a time machine. I can't for one moment imagine that the military or the government or whoever is really kind of in charge of this thing would feel that this game-changing technology is so just kind of laissez-faire to just be laying about and, whatever. For all they know, this guy was actually going to send himself back in time and screw up everything. So it just felt a little bit like maybe there should be a little bit more protocol and security, and maybe they wanted the Quantum Leap facility to be shut down. Shouldn't they have sent, I don't know, a few soldiers or that congresswoman or somebody in there to make sure this tech billionaire with delusions of grandeur didn't actively go back in time and screw with the entire history of Earth? I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it. That's what I tend to do here. But it just felt a little bit like, why are they letting this Gideon guy get all of this unfettered access to what could potentially be the greatest power on Earth right now? But that storyline kind of comes to a head with the whole revelation that finally Magic learns that Ian had stolen this chip. I guess he learns that Jen was in the know, even though I'm not entirely certain how that information came out. I guess they just kind of put two and two together. So now he is in the know with the audience and Gideon leaves him with, well, the DOD is going to come in and review you tomorrow. Somebody needs to be fired for this, and it probably has to be Ian. We know as the audience, or at least it's very on the nose to me, that Ian is not going to get fired. That's explicitly stated. Ian can't be fired because Ian is the only one capable of putting this long-lost DARPA code into practice to get Ben home. And Magic doesn't want to get rid of Jen because she had his back. She had his side with all of the stuff going on before, and then they 100% just put a lantern on that in this episode by, for the first time, probably all season, at least outside of that one episode early on, giving her something to do that was actually vital to her skill set and the story by allowing Ben in his leap to break into a safe to get the vital documents and information to solve the leap and save thousands of lives. I'll get to the leap portion in a little bit. So it was very, very putting a hat on it, hanging a lantern, whatever you want to say, that Jen and Ian were not getting fired, even so far as to the point where Magic comes in at the end to explain everything to Jen, and we think that he's saying she is fired. She thinks he is saying she is fired. To plot twist say, I'm actually falling on the sword myself. See you later, everybody. I just think that could have possibly been handled. Put this revelation earlier on in the season and have Magic absent, because he was absent for several episodes. He has done nothing, very, very minimally anything at all since he was the hologram early on and then had that little bit of storyline about falling back into alcoholism. He hasn't been in various episodes outside of basically a cameo. I know it's probably something to do with filming schedules and the strike and all of that. Maybe it didn't line up, but it would have felt a lot more genuine had this come up early on, or earlier on, I should say. Have him step away, be absent for several episodes. Then you could have built this tension in this scenario around the modern day Quantum Leap program to feel a little bit more stressful and a little bit more like it was building the tension throughout the season, instead of throwing this in very close to the end. So possibly he's not going to be back in the program by the end of the season. That's going to be part of the cliffhanger, but I think it just would have worked a little bit better had they thrown that in earlier. That's really all we get to learn as far as the modern day Quantum Leap stuff, outside of Addison and Tom officially breaking it off for good this time, and I guess that is her character journey. Tom has learned throughout the course of their actions here that fate probably does exist. He and Addison were meant to come together and, I don't know, help each other heal from their past trauma to move forward. That's probably also going to be implied why Ben and Hannah met, so that they could help each other heal, or at least that Ben could help himself heal through Hannah, and that by this coming together in history, Hannah will inevitably lead to his rescue in the future. I know that's convoluted. I just feel like that's where it's going. And all of that stuff really wraps up here. Now let's talk about the leap. It was a fine, fun leap. Not Roundup was getting their comeuppance for killing all of those people via cancer with their weed killing program. Obviously, we kind of knew where this was going from the start. Your typical journalist trying to do the right thing by uncovering a story to save lives and help people. None of that was bad. I actually enjoyed the story for what it was, but it wasn't all that unique, and you could kind of tell where it was going. Another thing at the end of the episode where they kind of break into the safe, steal the file, and then reveal the hidden secrets behind everything, that also felt a little bit just too nicely wrapped up. It's a very television or a movie ending. It doesn't feel like that would have worked in real life if they waltzed into a place, stole evidence, and then used that evidence to uncover a crime. I'm sure there are workarounds and things where that eventually would have come to light and worked out, but I don't think that theft of evidence and then just immediately using that stolen evidence would work out that way. Again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a cop. It just feels like that isn't how things would actually work in the real world, but I liked how it actually played out in the storyline, and I liked that they kind of used this to transition to the future by watching her news report in the future timeline on like a little tablet, but it had that very 80s aesthetic to it. I know that's just a little creative choice, but that's the type of stuff in this show that, had they played on that more throughout the show, bringing these elements from the past into the future and giving us these little glimpses through their eyes, I think that's something that this show could really capitalize on to give us a fresh and unique look through the universe of Quantum Leap. Similar to my feelings at the end of last episode, I don't think they have really given us the through line in this season to earn a lot of the decisions here. They're just kind of suddenly throwing them at us and rushing to the finish line, whereas I think they could have tied everything in a more well thought out way throughout the season. Again, a lot of behind the scenes reasons for that most likely, and I am enjoying what we're getting. I just can't help but feeling there's so many missed opportunities and so many things I would like more exploration on. They keep giving us these little threadbare elements that are not fleshed out, and they're very, very intriguing and interesting to think about. They're just not spending the time with the things that I personally think would be the most interesting. It's always a slippery slope when you judge a show for what it isn't as opposed to what it is, and for what it is, I am 100% enjoying it. Those are my thoughts. What did you think of this episode? Where do you think we're going? Do you think they're actively going to get Ben home by the end of this season? And where do you think the whole magic stepping down DOD modern day storyline is going to go? Leave all your thoughts down below. Like, share, subscribe, do all those fancy YouTube things. But until next time...